All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to our fourth installment of our live artist chats for Casey Fringe Festival. We're so excited to have you join us tonight. Tonight we are joined by six wonderful artists who have done amazing work in comedy and drama for our show. My name is Morgan. I will be hosting this lovely chat tonight, and let's get straight to the artists. So, DK, why don't you start by introducing yourself? There you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is DK Reinemer. I am from Bellingham, Washington in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm doing a show called Becoming Magic Mike. It's a very fun, silly action-adventure comedy parody of the movie Magic Mike mashed up with a bunch of old action movies. So super fun, super silly, and I take my clothes off. So there's that. This version was filmed live at Portland at the Curious Comedy Theater, and it's like multi-camera shot, so it was really fun to do. And yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. All right, Lynn, would you go ahead?
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Lynn Lohr, and I am a producer, director, and one of the actors in Qaddafi's Cook. And I'm based in California, but my team, you see Alvaro Flores, he's based in London. Adrian Paredes, our composer, is in Mexico City. Tom Berger, our technical person, is in Minnesota. So we're truly international. Qaddafi's Cook was inspired by true stories, and the playwright Lance Belville happened to hear a incredible tale in Baja California of two naive young chefs that took a job cooking diplomatically for the Libyan dictator Muammar Qaddafi, and then had to run for their lives. He combined that with his own experiences as a foreign correspondent under military dictatorships in South America. So there you have the drama of Qaddafi's Cook. And this particular version was filmed, we were in London performing at the Actors Center in the West End in January 2020. And after we came home from that and the world closed down, separately, we filmed this from our four spots. So enjoy.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Forrest, your turn.
Hello, my name is Forrest Kinsey. My piece was called DramaUrge. I'm from Kansas City. My piece was all about how a dramatist tries to put on his masterpiece theater piece all by himself, as maybe. It's nice.
All right, thank you. Michael, why don't you introduce yourself next?
Hi, I'm Michael Knight. I am based out of Orlando, Florida, and my play is The Fabulous King James Bible, produced by New Generation Theatrical. The Fabulous King James Bible is a fast-paced, witty comedy based on the concept of what would have happened during the development of the King James Bible, but it's inspired by the fact that King James was historically gay and is more of a commentary on how religion views homosexuality and the role of the scripture in the home. So it allowed for a discussion about what goes into religion and how people kind of interact with religion, but based on their own kind of prejudices and biases and how we can learn from those things. But it is a comedy based in history.
All right, wonderful. Jerry, let's go to you.
Hi, thanks, Morgan. Thanks, everybody. I'm Jerry Jaffe. I'm based in the Cleveland, Ohio area. My show is called The Comical Heathen, and it's derived from some material from a podcast I do. I'm writing a book about religious satire, and I started a podcast where I interview comedians and other writers and thinkers about satire and comedy and so forth. And every episode, I do my own little monologue where I rant about something I've seen in the news pertaining to religion. And after doing this for a couple of years, I've strung together some of my favorite rants into a one-person show format. And I describe it as half stand-up comedy, half TED Talk, 100% religious satire. And I do want to just add one other detail for people listening at home. It comes up in the show, but I call this the only comedy show that comes with a bibliography, because all the factual claims I make are sourced from newspaper and magazine articles and things from current events. And then it's extended into the world of humor. And that's what my show is about. Thank you.
Of course. And Casey, to round everyone out.
Hi, I'm Casey, based in Orlando as well. Casey Tregeagle is the full name. Yeah, so My Dear Debbie is the show. It kind of came from this idea. My wife is a avid I Love Lucy fan. She's actually, oh, wrong way. She's an I Love Lucy impersonator. That's her pretty face right there. And she got me watching like all of the episodes. I grew up watching I Love Lucy, obviously, but that was the first time, probably 3 years ago, I just sat down and was like watching the series straight through. And there was just an element of just the thought that I was like, what if this got super dark and effed up? And that's basically where the idea came from. So yeah, there was a lot of I Love Lucy episode watching to make sure that the tone of it matches. But there's also a surprise twist starring one of our fellow panelists, Michael Knight, is in the show as well. So yeah, check it out.
All right. And I want to remind everyone watching, all of these shows are available at kcfringe.org. And if you haven't got your ticket yet, you should go and do it after you watch the stream. So I want to open up with a very question to everyone. Obviously, we've spent the past year or so in the middle of a pandemic. So I want to just hear from you guys what it's been like to create art in this pandemic. What's it been like to develop your shows and film them, and how has that really affected you? And it can start with anyone.
I would say it turned internal is kind of what the way I feel about it is that, like, I feel like most show business and most playwriting and everything is about, reaching out and trying to like get to people and what's going to reach. And I think what one of the benefits was that it actually turned it into, what do I want to do? And what is something I'm passionate about? How do I just do it for me? Because I have to do this as an artist I have to create. And so rather than try to make the next big thing that was big and out there and flashy or brought in an audience, it's how can I use this time to create something that's personal to me and something on a small scale to just tell a story. And I think that's what I did, and that's how I felt about it. So it was actually kind of a big deal to do this show, because it was one of the first times I hadn't just done it on Zoom or had people reading something on Zoom. It was cool to like get people in an actual space. We actually rehearsed this whole show on Zoom, and then we did testing and quarantining and came in for one day and filmed the whole thing. So
yeah.
I think for us, a couple of things. We had to, reimagine this show, obviously, from the standpoint of when it's done live. Freddie, the actor, cooks on stage. He makes all these dishes that are a metaphor for living under a dictatorship. And then that comes out in the play. So then to have the four of us in different parts of the globe and figure out how we were going to keep the momentum of the show going was an important thing. And it was a wonderful thing because it kept us all in touch with what was going on in our various parts of the world and the country, and then helped us reimagine how we're going to do this differently in a post-pandemic world, when we can perform live again, because people can't eat the seedless watermelon or have a taste of the Fideo Seco anymore. So we're changing all the time, evolving.
Jerry.
Hi all, this is Jerry again. Because the aesthetic form is stand-up comedy, and this affected all the performing arts. Even I run a theater department at a college, so performing arts sort of shut down overnight last spring. So I had only performed this show or earlier version of it 4 times for audiences. And for stand-up comedy, it's a lot about the audience, Zoom shows aside of the past year. And so I literally was just barely taking baby steps and then had to go back inside and, play by myself for a year. And now I'm trying to go back out and get my sort of sea legs. It did give me a chance to work on the script as well as the podcast version, but it really felt like almost the live show version was set back a year. Like I thought a year from now I would be filming the comedy special version of this show and trying to, do whatever I can do with that. And now I'm just like rewriting the script and starting over, which is creatively exciting, but does, as many people probably do, feel like I'm a year behind schedule now with the project.
Definitely.
I will say, I think it ended up benefiting, at least for my show, is having to film it just because of the nature of what it is. It's a half sitcom. So I think the filmed version of it definitely benefited from it being forced to be filmed rather than a live stage production. Not that I don't think it would be a very fun live show. It just definitely, I think, benefited from that format. But yeah, I definitely have done a couple other of live filmed shows. So it has benefited me. I feel like I tend to think more cinematically than I do stage wise. So yeah, again, it's benefited me, but I know it's definitely been a struggle for others.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, the whole situation was the basis for making my personal piece, which the moral, the theme, the thesis to the DramaUrge is that it's good to just make things, regardless if it's even possible for any audience to be there. It's a big part of why I even made my piece, and I wrote this piece specifically so I didn't have to involve anyone else in putting themselves in danger, making any kind of spread. It was incredibly formative to how my personal piece just exists, even in just its bare essentials.
Wow, y'all seem like you handled the pandemic way better than I did. I dipped into a deep depression cycle and continued. It is interesting. This show here I wrote in 2018, so it doesn't really have effect. But I did write 2 shows and perform 2 sort of puppet shows and then a green screen show. And Forrest, the show I created was all like green screen stuff, and there was multi angles and not nearly as complex as yours, but the editing and stuff is insane. And so what the pandemic did for me is kind of forced me to use different muscles in a way, which was very cool. So learning how to, I knew how to edit, but also just editing something that is sort of adapted for the stage, but it's not the stage. So I think I struggled with that, trying to figure out, like, I don't want to try and recreate an audience coming to a theater and saying, look, this is theater. It's like, it's definitely not, because you're watching it on a small little screen. So that was a hard pivot, but it was really fun. And I think it forced me to create some fun stuff. And Forrest, similarly, I think it sounds like that inspired you to do a similar sort of thing, that's what art's about to me. It's very cool that we sort of evolved through this trying time.
Yeah. I know the pandemic has hit me hard as a theater student, so I can't imagine what it's like being out in the industry trying to figure out what you all are doing. So I really commend you all for the work you put into this and the success you're making for yourselves. Lynn, I want to start with a question for you. So a lot of these shows that I've watched, most of you guys are kind of all in person. They're all done on film. Yours, you said, was done via Zoom for this festival. And I know you said it was originally done on the stage. So how did you adapt it from going from a stage play with audience interaction to doing it on Zoom? And what were the challenges of that?
Well, first of all, there were the distance challenges, as I said, and then there was the kind of compression of what happens, in the show, and it it works with my character because I'm a CIA agent there to discover these things that were left after Qaddafi was killed. And so I have a journal and I can read it. So I can stay in one place. But the actor Alvaro is going through all kinds of changes because he's in a different reality anyway. He's kind of in, nether world. So for us, it was figuring out all of that. And then just all of the, all the technical things we all have to figure out anyway, lighting, background, microphones, which microphone do we use, which editing, compression, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So fortunately we had a good part of our technical team was in Minnesota, part of it was in Mexico City, and we were testing and trying all kinds of things. And we didn't have any money, like probably everybody else. We didn't have any money to do any of this stuff. So okay, let's get a free trial of X, Y, and Z sound equipment and do that or platform. But it was a lot of fun, and it we're very happy with what we came up with. And we had thought about making it a radio play too. Mm-hmm. And then we said, no, let's go with this. And Alvaro is such a fabulous actor and can take you on such a whole trip, even if he's in one small space. Mm. So it was fun.
Good. Was it hard for you to kind of adapt from acting for a stage to acting to a camera? Because I know that's something I kind of struggled with. So was it something that you guys had to work around with, how to act properly for a camera?
Alvaro had done a lot of film work. He has a background, in doing that. I have not done as much film work. So he was completely natural. And for me, yes, I was having to, back off and not play to the back seats and all of that. And so, I'd done some other things, but it'd been a while. So this was a good tool, a good practice.
Definitely. So. Qaddafi's an amazing show, and I really enjoyed watching it. And anyone out there, please go watch it. It's an amazing drama, such an interesting story. I highly recommend you check it out.
Thank you. Oh, can I say one thing? It's really important for people to understand how Qaddafi is spelled, because it's one of those languages where it could be with a K, a Q, or a G. So it's a Q, Qaddafi's cook. Thanks.
Good to know. Thank you, Lynn. Casey, I want to move on to you next. So I watched My Dear Debbie, and it was astounding to me. I didn't expect that dark twist at all. I loved the show. So I was wondering, how do you marry that kind of comical 50s I Love Lucy feeling with that darker twist? Was it hard to kind of make the two connect? Was it easy for you? What was that process like?
I think when I was initially writing it, there was definitely this concept of the high comedy, because obviously we are in a generation of sitcoms that tends to be a lot more subtle right now. But I feel like in that time period, everything was so elevated in terms of how comedy was portrayed, that I felt like the laugh track really was going to kind of sell the moment. Not to give anything away, but the laugh track definitely, it's definitely a lot in the sound design. It wouldn't be quite as effective, I think, without those sound effects placed where they are. And I think too, it was very important to talk with all the actors that were involved with that scene about really changing their tone. They play this high comedy throughout the entire thing, and then this is the one scene that you really not even just bring it down, you wrench it down. But that laugh track still playing through. And I think that ended up working out to great effect. Some of the other scenes in the show are a little bit more mystery driven. And that's kind of my love of, I really love pacing when it comes to specifically TV shows, but kind of everything. I like getting little bits of information at a time, enough to drive you into the next scene, the next episode, whatever that has to do with. So it was kind of it just worked out. Initially, I had this idea to split it into 2 acts and have all of the high jinks in the first act and then have this whole other subplot in the second act. But I feel like it ended up working better this way because it kind of worked with the pacing. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. To me, the pacing felt a lot kind of like Cabaret, where you'd have those scenes in the cabaret and it's nice and fun. You don't realize what's going on and then you get hit by reality. And I love that kind of pacing. It's wonderful. I was also kind of wondering, Casey, how did you decide what you wanted that dark twist to be? Because no one expects it. It's out of nowhere. So how did you decide this is what I want it to be, not something that could have been a little lighter or a lot darker? How did you land where you did for it?
I mean, in the initial script, it was a whole lot darker because the twist comes from little Tommy instead of the neighbor. I decided for the sake of trying to not scar a child actor with having to make that a reality, it would probably be better coming from an adult. But yeah, it just very much felt like I feel like you see all of these hints, especially in I Love Lucy, but kind of in a lot of those 50s sitcoms, this like anger undertone. And of course, it's always played for laughs. Ricky always is, Lucy! But what if that was now? It would be very real and very visceral. So I felt that kind of felt like a natural thing. And then my brain went too dark. Maybe not too dark, but it went a lot darker than it probably needed to. But it kind of, again, felt right in terms of kind of where we were, because I was hearing all of these stories during the quarantine of all of these abuse allegations that were coming forward, and it felt a little bit even more prevalent during quarantine. So, well, spoil the ending. Cheers. Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of how that came about. So
yeah. And I really appreciate that you put those statistics at the end of that show. I think that was really amazing that you did that. And I love that it's educating your audience as well. So please, if you haven't seen it, go check out My Dear Debbie. Wonderful show, amazing twist. If you're going to be like me, your jaw will drop when you realize what's happening. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to kind of double team real quick with Michael and Jerry. I have a question for both of you.
I thought this might happen.
You both have shows that deal with very religious themes, with one being the interpretation of the Bible, one you're talking about everything under the sun with religion. So I grew up in the church. I kind of know what the people are like in there. So I was wondering, have either of you really experienced any kind of backlash from what you have done, what you've produced, or has it been like an okay reception, a good reception? Like what's been your audience been like?
So I want to say something. I apologize for, being the teacher or the diva and taking center stage. I loved all these shows. If we spent the whole hour talking about how much we loved each other, we wouldn't accomplish anything. I want to tell Michael that when I watched this show and King James and his friend hugged near the end, I wept. It was a well-earned moment. And just congratulations for really like hitting the mark on that moment. It really touched me.
What's great is that was actually the actors. They came up with that. So
aren't actors great?
Yeah,
I love actors.
It's a really beautiful thing. They were like, we should do this, and they were like, no, we have to do this. And so it was very sweet, especially since we were trying to make sure that our staging was mostly distanced. But yeah, thank you. It was something that I was proud of them for finding within the script. So it was really cool. But thank you. I really appreciate your compliment.
To Morgan's question about backlash, so I haven't had much. I did the show, the last time I did it before the pandemic was in March of 2020 in Columbus to an audience of about 20, but it was advertised as religious satire, so bring your safety goggles. And one couple walked out 10 minutes in. They didn't say anything, and I said, thank you for coming, and just thank them for coming, I guess. Now, for the KC Fringe, I've been posting a lot, like every other day, and I have a trailer, and my trailer has been getting hate mail. And not tons, but since I had 0 hate mail before KC Fringe, to get like 3 to me is like an infinite increase in the amount of people complaining. which I do not engage. So if someone complains, I just scroll on. I'm not here to get involved in internet arguments with trolls and strangers. And then I will say, here in Northeast Ohio, was the only place I've done the show live so far. The audiences are not quite curated, but it's advertised, and also friends and comedians I know come out to be supportive. And it's for people who like satire or who like smarter comedy. I hate to say that about myself, but that's what my friends, that's the feedback I get, is that they enjoy someone who's trying to do smarter comedy or trying to intertwine, I don't know, like you use the word learning with it. And also with many of the shows, including Casey's and also in mine, because I direct a lot of plays, traditional live theater would have a program. And I think this video format lends itself to like, what are you going to put in your notes? What are you going to put at the front of your show, like the video of your show? So it's almost like reimagining what your program notes would be. So I would expect it if I saw Casey's show live, there might be like statistics like that in the program, are shared in some other theatrical way. So I think it's just interesting to see how in the video format, different types of information that would be program notes in a play 20 years ago can manifest in different ways. Thank you. Hey, Michael, Morgan.
As far as backlash for me, yeah, the only backlash we've gotten is when we've advertised for it and people just see the title. In fact, the term "shouldn't religion be more fabulous" is something that seems to bother people. And usually like, it's just like the most common one we get is it's well, I'll tell you, you had me until I saw the rainbow fabulous, and then I just wasn't into it. And I mean, I could probably count like five people who have made a comment, and it's usually our paid advertising. So like, because it's reaching random people. So if I'm posting, because there's only the two groups that I posted in, I'd like to know where you're posting. Because the two groups that I posted in Kansas City is, artist community and the Casey Actors Helping Actors. And we haven't gotten any sort of like, well, that was really, that was offensive. And the thing is that what's really lovely about our show, and I think most people would agree, I'm not a religious person, but I find so many things interesting about the nature of religion, which is what drove me to write this play, about its function in our society and a lot of the hypocrisy that goes along with it. And many of the people who have seen this show who are religious get done with it and they go, that was actually really celebratory. Like that was actually something that was really reverent toward the concept of religion, but it just explored and discussed these things. So most people who see it they're not offended by it. In fact, some people I have heard, and I had to work with our actors on this, it was actually the depiction of the homosexual characters where people were like, that was a little stereotypical, don't you think? But again, like 50% of our cast was part of the LGBTQ plus community. And so with every joke, it was always, hey, what do you guys think? Is this gonna fly? Are you comfortable with this? Is this something you're comfortable saying and doing? And they said yes. And so with that, I deferred to them. So there's a lot of things that people could get offended by, but generally they don't. And that's been pretty good.
Yeah. One more thing, in the book I'm writing about satire, one of the things, again, art, there's no 100% rule, but a large percentage of satire doesn't really talk about run-of-the-mill religious people with good intentions. Satire is often about either leaders or hypocrites or bad ideas. And so I think that there's a lot of room where, like in my show, maybe Michael's show as well, I'm not making fun of anybody. I don't walk out and go, hey, you religious person, you're a dope. Like that's not part of the story or the script or the jokes. It's, here's a really bad idea. Maybe we should think about this again. So a lot of times satire isn't about sincere believers. It's about hypocrisy or bad ideas.
Yeah. No, I personally love both of your shows. As someone who grew up in religion, is now removed from it, I enjoyed the commentary you both gave. So I think they're wonderful shows. Michael, I want to jump back to you. So you mentioned obviously that there's the fact that King James was historically gay. That was a fact I never knew of. So I was wondering how you found out about that and how did that play into the role of developing this show?
So this is the second play that I've written that is based on essentially like an internet meme. I saw this posted on a meme website called Imager or Imgur, depending on who uses it. And it was a Tumblr screenshot where essentially it was like, one of my favorite things about history is the fact that King James I kept promoting his boyfriend because they told him that he couldn't. And so I read, and then someone was like, no, this was real. In fact, the reason that they wrote the King James Bible was because his priests came to him and said, you're not allowed to be gay. And he said, I don't know that. I can't read the Bible. So unless I can read it, I'm not going to stop doing that. And it said like he just kept promoting his boyfriend to piss off the government. And I was like, that is one of the funniest things that I've ever heard. And so I did some more research into it, and I found out about like his, again, it's never been really confirmed, but there are letters that he wrote to this person, this George Villiers guy, very romantically, very sweetly. And some people are like, well, that's just how people talk. But I mean, there are accounts of seeing him being very affectionate with this man or with multiple men. And then there's like other accounts of like men who he had relationships with when he was younger. And again, so I sort of just did quick Google searches. I also Googled the development of the actual, like how the actual King James Bible. And I mean, there was a huge convention. It wasn't just done in a room with a conversation. He like actually held a convention with a bunch of priests. It took years. But for the purposes of the story I wanted to tell, I wanted to like just have the conversation. I wanted it started with the moment of how funny would it be if these two guys came in and said, hey, you got to stop being gay. And he just goes, well, I don't know that. You want to change it? And then the other bit that I originally started with that I thought was so funny was like George running in and going, hey, you're a duke now. Go ahead, go away. Hey, come back in. You're an earl. Good job. Go away. And I just thought that was very funny. So all of that is kind of what inspired the piece. But really what I wanted to do with it was have a discussion over the nature of how people tend to be anti-religious, anti-gay while being very religious. And it was just a catalyst to have that conversation.
No, it's a very engaging show. It's very fabulous as well. You advertise it very well in your title. So if you want to see a really good take on religion and the LGBTQ, go check out The Fabulous King James Bible. It's wonderful. You'll laugh hysterically and you'll just walk away going, that was really funny and also very thought-provoking. I'm going to jump back down to Jerry. So you said earlier you lead a theater department, you do all this stuff. I noticed in your opening it said you have a doctorate, you're a doctor. So I'm just wondering, how does all this lead to doing stand-up? Least of all, religious satire stand-up. How did this happen?
So I graduated from college just with my BA in 1989, and I started doing stand-up. And then I decided that was not a good career choice. And instead I went to graduate school, which was only a slightly better career choice. And then I eventually got my PhD. I mean, I've traveled a lot, and just to fast forward for the sake of everyone's sanity, I moved to Cleveland about 12 years ago to take this teaching position. And I remember doing stand-up as a child and said, you know what, that's what I should be doing right now. So I do stand up sort of as a side gig and et cetera, et cetera. And then the creative writing aspect of stand-up comedy is sort of overlooked. Most people don't realize how much writing is involved. And that's what really appeals to me. And I hit a kind of wall where I was featuring and working, but I would never be a headliner telling jokes about my wife and my pet rabbits. I had to tell jokes about what I really cared about. And so I started looking at satire and societal issues and politics and religion. And if I had a dream of like where my career could go in a platinum case scenario, it involved all of those things. And then one more sentence, about 5 years ago, started working on a book on religious satire after September 11th. So that's sort of the academic side of my life, but it really stimulated me to go like way deeper into the world of religious satire and my own creativity.
Yeah. And then also in your stand-up, you do a Q&A. You interact with your audience and you have them ask you questions. How did that come about? Do you get interesting questions? Do you get really weird questions?
So my background as a theater kid and theater teacher includes improv. I bet that's true for many of the people on this call and at this festival. And so young stand-up comedians are afraid to talk to the crowd. It's terrifying, and I understand that. And I just said, hey, I've been doing improv since college. I can do this. And I just started in stand-up. I do trivia, I talk to the audience, I do crowd work shows. And I just said, I got to bring audience interaction and improv into this show. And because I'm a professor in real life, so to speak, I'm used to fielding questions from students, and I love my students, but you often hear the same questions and stupid questions over the years. So there was this like, what kind of stupid questions can I get the audience to ask me about either religion or my show or whatever? And I'm sure you guys understand, but just any of the 12 people who might watch the show, none of these questions are like pre-done or anything. It's literally, I just sort of stop the show and go, it's Q&A time, ask me some questions and mess around for 10 minutes. And it changes the energy of the show. Audiences really enjoy it. I started doing Q&A episodes of my podcast because of it. And I just wanted to have like that element of improv. And I get the whole range of questions from very sincere ones to audience members who are trying to be funny, to everything in between. So I don't know, because it's improv to me, I don't judge the questions. I just like roll with the punches.
I think your show is very entertaining, very interesting, because it's something I've never really seen before with religious satire stand-up. So if you enjoy religious satire, you enjoy stand-up, you just want to see something that's kind of like a TED Talk, but not as professional or makes you feel a little uncomfortable because it's a TED Talk, go check out the Comical Heathen. I can speak. It's a wonderful show, and I highly encourage everyone to watch it.
Thank you.
All right, so my next question is going to be for Forrest. So we've kind of talked about it a little bit before we got live, but you played everyone in your show. This is truly a one-man show. You filmed every role. You said you edited it all together. What was that experience like, trying to go from just filming every character? What was that like for you?
It was a lot of work. It was tedious some days, especially when I couldn't get to take a write. I come from doing a lot of improv and doing a lot of sketch comedy. And over this last year, I did a lot of individually done video sketches. I was a little practiced in doing this whole thing for 10 minutes or less. So I thought, great, I'm definitely qualified to do 45 minutes. So I put that all together. The filming of it was definitely difficult. For each shot, I would be two places on the stage at once, so I would set up that camera, go find a spot on the stage, block it out carefully so that everything is scaled properly, and then do somewhere between 2 and 7 takes for each shot. Get that all done, just so have enough, just in case I would walk in a weird way or throw up.
Can I ask a quick question? Just not. My curiosity is: was this the first show that you've written? Only because you really seemed to understand the imposter syndrome of being a writer, creator, actor, and like it was such an evaluation of that mental process. So, like, is this something you've experienced before, or just through your experiences? Like, was this the first show you've ever written, or have you written before?
I've written before, nothing this long. Haven't done Fringe before, or on a real show. But I feel that imposter syndrome all the time, just because I'm young and no one wants what I say. And that's fine. I'm gonna get better at things. But yeah, thank you.
They do want to hear what you have to say.
I'd like to say I really appreciated the difference in all the characters, and I appreciated in both your show, Forrest, and DK shows how well populated your stage was with other people. Both of you do that in two entirely different ways, and I thought, yeah, these are two artists who are really doing an incredibly kind of different take on a one-man show. So it's kind of fun where we're grouped here in the same group, I see a fine hand working and getting all of these folks together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask a question about Force as well. As a video editor who is, how much green screen work did you have to do? Because like the shots were set up perfectly to match everything else, and I know that had to have taken forever to make sure that everything matched and worked correctly. And like as a fellow passionate editor, it was very impressive. Like it was very bold for you to try and get that done. But it was how much green screen work was involved?
I don't think I used any green screen. I did rotoscoping instead. So it was,
but that's also extremely time consuming. Yeah. Oh, I just did rotoscoping.
Oh, that was a month's worth of editing, and even then, I was right up on that deadline.
Yeah, it was impressive. It was well done.
Yeah, super impressive.
It's a very impressive show to watch. I also wanted to ask, what is it like to kind of act against yourself? Obviously, you don't really have yourself there to act against. So what is it like? Are you trying to remember what you did in your head? Are you just doing one person and not thinking about the other? What was that acting experience like?
It's a lot of costume changes for very short lines, especially in those scenes where there's like 7 or 8 on the stage. Some of them aren't even saying anything. It's difficult. There's no one to play off of. You really just have to run it in your head. What was the person's emotion? What is yours? Where do you have to move? When are you going to run into them? Stuff like that. But
the kissing scene was particularly well done.
Thank you. Yeah, all angles remembering where things ended up. Again, that one had like about 14 different takes, just in case.
Wow, it's astonishing. I could not commit to that level you did, so I'm very astonished, and I admire your work very much. If you want a very interesting show, a very fun show, it's got the end of the world, it's got theater people, it's got one man playing every single role you could imagine. Go check out the DramaUrge. It's a fabulous show. You'll get a kick out of it. And then to the man of the hour, DK, who we all want to know, DK, are you going to strip? It's been asked.
Oh, I don't know if we all want to know that. I'll do one.
Yay!
Yes.
There it is.
The 100 degrees. Thank you.
So, DK, I have to ask, because the show is just so funny and so absurd, where did this idea come from for becoming Magic Mike? It's hysterical.
Thank you. That's let's see. So I wrote a show in 2017 called Help, I'm American, and it was right after some bad times in America had occurred, and so I toured this show across the Canadian Fringe circuit, and the sort of premise of the show was I was a touring artist through Canada and presenting the show in hopes that Canada would give me citizenship and allow me to stay in Canada. And it was a super fun kind of a just one-man sketch show, sketch variety. But one of the sketches I had in it was this sketch I did where I was a children's birthday magician that, due to a scheduling error, accidentally gets booked at a bachelorette party. And so he shows up ready to do like Timmy's birthday and realizes that it's a bachelorette. And because he's a poor working actor, he does the job anyway. So it's this like juggling, stripping magic show. And it was kind of my ending sketch. And it always did really well in that show. And so me and a couple other Fringe artists were just sitting around talking. And somehow One Man Magic Mike came up. And it sort of just marinated with me for a long time. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna write that show. And so I was living in Portland, Oregon, and I went to the coast and sort of locked myself in a beach hotel and just wrote out this show. And I was kind of excited about mashing it up with a different genre, because I didn't want to just parody Magic Mike and just do bad stripping and funny stripping. I thought, well, what's a fun way I could mix it up. So I just came up with the action movies and sort of tried to just throw in as many sort of action movie references and jokes and tropes and yeah. So that's sort of how it came to be.
I love that it was buddy cop style. I love buddy cop films. So when I realized that was kind of the style you were going, I was just so excited. But one of the things that makes your show really fun is your audience interaction. You get to pull the audience up on stage and have one guy start dancing with you and act with another woman.
Yeah.
So obviously not every show is going to be as interactive as the one that was filmed. So what has that experience been like? Have there been difficult audiences? Have there been fun audiences? And how does that affect the show for you?
Totally. Yeah. And I think someone else spoke about or Jerry, I think you have some interaction in the audience. And yeah, it's awesome. I think for me, improv was my gateway into comedy. So I certainly started and fell in love with comedy through improv. And it's always been something that I like to include in my shows. Whether that's because it's a crutch or I just really enjoy the tightrope, the high wire act. I always write in some moments that are heavily, inspired or completely based off of the audience interaction. And in this show, it certainly does play a massive part because I sort of just endow these audience members as being other characters in the show. And it's been the full spectrum of involvement. Some people, are like way overly into it, and usually they're drunk, and so then it's like, okay, easy, but it's very fun, and I think that challenge is just as fun as the sort of more reserved, quiet person who, if I give them enough attention in a safe and create that safe space, it's amazing what people will actually do in front of a group of people. And so that's kind of what I love about it, is that I'm genuinely trying to connect with this person in the middle of this very absurd, over the top comedy show. And usually it leads to something wonderful. Yeah, so it's great.
I had a question about that, because you're a doctor in the show, your female doctor that you interact with. She was very, very on it. So I don't want to
she was absolutely, yeah.
I don't want to discredit you, but I was curious, was she a plant or like, because she was like on top of it.
No, I had never. She wasn't a plant at all. I had met her. No, I don't even think I met her before the show, but she certainly became a fan after, and has come seen other shows that I've done. But she was just super, super into it and on it. And honestly, I'll find that sometimes. Some people are just right in there and they will jump right in to play along. And I don't know if that's because she wasn't an actor, but I think sometimes you'll just find people that are very playful and able to pulse into that. I don't know. But no, never. I never plant. It would just ruin it if, I don't know, it wouldn't be a one solo show, and I couldn't really tour it if I was bringing you're going to sit in the audience.
That's awesome, though. That makes that recording nice and special.
Yeah.
No. DK, your show is hysterical. I was rolling on the floor when I watched it. So if you really need a good night in with just some good comedy, go check out Becoming Magic Mike. It's hysterical. Believe me, you'll love it.
Thank you.
I have a few more kind of general questions for everyone before we start to wrap up, because we've been very chatty Cathy's tonight, which I love. But I wanted to kind of ask all of you, what do you think your theater, your art has the power to do? Because I know personally, I have a very strong connection with art, and I love seeing everything. And sometimes it moves me, sometimes it makes me laugh. It does a lot for me. So what do you think your theater, your art has the power to do? And what do you want it to achieve?
I'll start off by just saying, the number one thing that I think my art specifically, I guess if you're talking about me, is it the power to make people think. Because what I try to do is say, hey, I got something to say, but if I come out and just try to beat you over the head with it, you may not be open to listening. So I'm going to put it inside of a story, and I'm also going to make that story funny. But by the end of this, I want you to think about it. And I'm not going to give you an answer. I want you to think and start evaluating. And that is what I try to do with almost every piece I create, is that, yes, do we have a plot? And do I personally, I love a story just for a story's sake, but I like to write to have people leave the theater going, huh, you know what, that actually, okay, well, I have thought about that before, but I'd never seen it presented that way. So, and then you have to have a discussion about it, or you have to at least think about it. And the best thing is like, we do this all the time. People try to do it on social media in these like comment sections arguments, but if you paid $10 for a ticket and you got to sit there and listen, you're going to end up thinking. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that, I think that if I were to be arrogant enough to endow myself with an ability, I think that that's something I do pretty well, is make people think.
I think we're in the same frame. You know, my whole career has been about plays about social issues and history and folklore, and not from a didactic standpoint. You know, I don't want to teach them anything. I want them to have an experience, and then, as Michael said, think about it and preferably do something about it. Go further with the subject or the issue. I'm the co-founder of the History Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is a 500-seat equity theater based on folklore, social issues, and history. And it is based entirely on that premise. And it's in its, I'll give my age away, it's in its 43rd year. So.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. I agree, and I bet we're very like-minded. I do have like another element that's very important to me. In the 80s, as a college student, giving away my age, I went to the local art house cinema to see a midnight showing of Fellini's Satyricon, which is still my all-time favorite movie. And that showing, especially at midnight, I was sober, but I was just tired, was like a very psychedelic, emotional, freakadelic experience. And I want people, both actors and audiences, to have emotional journeys and emotionally intense experiences. And I want them to know there's more than one way to do theater. I love theater. By the way, I love Broadway musicals, but they're also the bane of my existence, because I love Annie. Actually, is a great show when done well. I'm not convinced the world needs another production of Annie. And Cleveland is a great theater city for conservative traditional theater, but it is a terrible city for avant-garde alternative venues, our student theater. And there are some local artists trying to change that, so I totally support them. But I just want people to know there's more. Not only is there more than one way to do theater, there are as many ways to do theater as there are human beings. And I want to just see as many different types of theater and create as many different types of theater as possible.
I love that. Yeah,
I think I like exactly what Michael and what everyone said before. Yeah, it's thinking, or I've certainly landed more on the like, I don't want to call it smart dumb comedy, like but that's certainly where I think so I guess just finding ways to bring people together to laugh who might not normally be together to laugh, or laugh at things in a way that surprises people. So I don't know, I am going through sort of a personal, like, wanting to have a little bit more deeper meaning in my comedy. But I also I just love that people from all walks of life can join in this sort of hour to laugh at something. And I don't know, that unification is really powerful to me. And I think that we forget that a lot when we get busy in our lives, and just kind of provide that relief, the release valve, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. More laughter.
I'll go ahead. I think my goal at the end of the day is always to entertain. I think when you are into something, whether it's the comedy, the drama, whatever brings you into it, you're more likely to get something out of it when it is entertaining. So I think that is probably my main goal. I've been able to write a variety of different genres of shows, and I think that is always kind of a through line for me, is just making sure that it is entertaining first, and then that the message, the story always kind of comes out of that, and it kind of lands on its feet. So I think that's my main goal. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody said great things.
I did.
Fantastic.
Very good.
You're all great.
All right, for my final question for tonight, I would love to ask you guys, where can our audience find you? Where can they support you? I would love for them to be able to reach you guys, support your shows, all of your next endeavors. So we can just go around and where can we find you? Where can we support you guys?
All right, I'll jump in. So I am on Facebook under Jerry C. Jaffe. Be careful, Jerry Jaffe is my father. So that's a very different experience if you try to join his Facebook page. And there is a podcast that inspired this show, which is also called The Comical Heathen. It's available free on all the usual podcast places, including iTunes and Stitcher. And as the teaser, I recently interviewed Lewis Black, which is my biggest get as an interview subject. So comedy fans, please come on over and listen to some of my interviews.
Great.
I'll go next. I'm on all the social medias at DK Reinemer on all of them. I have a TikTok. Woo! I also started a Patreon. It's Patreon/DK Reinemer, and where I just make videos and a bunch of stuff. So if you want to jump on and support me regularly there, that's cool. And then if you know anyone in Utah and Salt Lake City, I'm actually doing Magic Mike live there at the Great Salt Lake Fringe Festival, which starts, my first show is on the 30th. So it'll kind of be at the tail end of this festival. I'll be starting an in-person festival, which hopefully the Delta variant dies, or I don't know, who knows, it might be all canceled. But if you're in Salt Lake, come see me in person. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I've been promoting show by show, so we're findable at Qaddafi's Cook, and another new show that we're working on at Cowboy and Widow, and then I have just a smaller page at Belleville Fringe, so which is more our Belleville Productions page, because we're going to be looking at once the world is open, fuller productions of past shows too.
Amazing.
You can find me Facebook, Instagram specifically for shows. I have an Instagram that's at Featured Dancer Productions. That's my production company, but that has all of the updates. My Dear Debbie will virtually be a part of the Great Salt Lake Fringe Festival starting on the 29th, which is awesome. I have another one of my shows, Goodbye Liam, that's going to be a part of the Minnesota Fringe Festival. And then as well as I filmed my very first show. It's called Single Writer with a question mark. But that's going to be available on newgentheatrical.org/single writer. That's actually part of Michael's company. His company is hosting it. And I think it's the 5th through the 8th, you'll be able to see every show I've written in that 4-day span. So you can have a Casey Fringe binge.
I guess I'll sort of jump in after that. So you can find almost all of my stuff at www.newgentheatrical.org. We host multiple different types of performance at New Gen Theatrical. We have our own digital platform. So essentially all of our plays and shows are up there. And we provide hosting for anybody who has a recorded show but doesn't have a Fringe to take it to. So if you have a recorded show and you want to put it somewhere where like the ticketing is done for you, The money goes straight to you. You get there's a split, but I mean, it's a way to put your show up there so that people can see it and you can direct them somewhere to see it and they'll buy a ticket. That's through our newgentheatrical.org. But yeah, Fabulous King James Bible's up there. We got a couple more coming down the pike, and it's on all sorts of all the socials. So Facebook and Instagram, Twitter is at New Gen Theatrical. So just follow us. We have a ton of random small projects going on, a lot of digital projects happening right now. So
Cracking open a cold one.
Yeah, we do a it's called Cracking Open a Cold One, in which we have a writer write a play overnight, and then they send it out, and the actors get a day with the script, and then we all take a couple shots and do the show on Zoom buzzed. And it's a goofy, crazy time. So that's where you can find us.
Amazing.
Oh, and I should say, yeah, Qaddafi's Cook is in, it would be remiss of me not to say Minnesota Fringe. So we go next to Min Fringe. So
same.
And a Comical Heathen is in the upcoming Louisville Fringe in 2 weekends.
Love it.
Forrest, where can we find you?
Forrest, are you there? Forrest.
I'm here. I'm actually just on YouTube under Forrest Kinsey. That's all my stuff is currently under there. Free to watch, which is a great poll. Yeah, it's all good.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to all of our artists for joining us tonight. This has been a fabulous chat. I've enjoyed every minute of it. For those of you watching, if you joined us late or missed part of this chat, don't worry. This chat will be on Facebook Live afterwards. Be recorded for you to watch. We're also on YouTube and Twitch, so you can find us there. If you want to support these actors right now, you can go to kcfringe.org, and we offer everything from single tickets to full VIP passes. Please go and support them and us by buying a ticket today. We also are taking donations on PayPal. You can look on our website for that as well. And please come back and join us again on Thursday night at 6 p.m. for another artist chat. And we hope to see you all then. So thank you guys very much and have a good night.
Thanks,
Morgan.
Morgan.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bryson.
Thank you.
Thanks.